Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and while emptying out my game room completely, I ran into these two random Game Boy Advance games, and it's crazy because every time I forget that I sold my video game collection, I run into something that reminds me, oh yeah, I once had a really large video game collection. But what I wanted to talk about this morning was this whole concept of a video game crash or a video game slowdown, and the idea that's been trending about the video game industry getting ready to crash and burn. Now, I first want to start off by saying someone left a comment on one of my other videos where I was talking about where I think price trends for games are going to go. And in that video, for the most part, I kind of said that like the more rare expensive games are going to continue to stay where they're at, or if not go up. Some of the mid to low tier stuff, you'll probably see dips in those games. And I think the really, really common stuff is probably just going to fall off the shelf. Like no one's really going to want that stuff. It's going to stay in the $5 and under slot, right? So I didn't predict any major crashes or collapses or anything catastrophic, but someone came on under that video and said that basically they were trying to say that I was trying to convince myself that the video game market is going to collapse because I sold my collection. And I mean, comments like that always crack me up because video games aren't stocks. They're not bonds. They're not investments. They're not real estate. They're video games. Now, don't get me wrong. They have value, right? And so, their value is going to be tied to their market, right? But it's not the stock market. Video games don't trade on global economic news. Video games don't trade on what's happening with the Fed or who's been elected president, or video games don't trade that way. Video games really just trade off of a few key factors, right? One is going to be popularity, and how much a hobby is trending at the time. That's a huge factor. I think there are certain things that could happen in pop culture that could cause spikes in certain retro games or for certain video games. You can see that happen, but I think overall the biggest factor is just the overall economic conditions for people who are into this hobby, right? I'm not talking about the speculators or people who just kind of transient to the hobby, people that kind of float in and float out. I'm talking about what does the financial outlook look like for the diehard collectors of video games? And then you might say, well, Y2K, who are the diehard collectors of video games? Well, I haven't run the statistics myself. I haven't done the research to know who specifically is buying video games. But I think it's safe to say that that most likely the core audience for video games, the majority of that audience is probably going to be men, and it's probably going to be men and I mean, when it comes to retro games, I would say it's most likely going to be men between the ages of 25 and 45. And if it's like just modern video games, the demographic obviously opens up a lot more because then you have kids and children between the ages of, I don't know, 12 13 to 18. You got families in there depending on the console, right? So but I would say that for the most part, the demographic of video games as a whole, retro and modern, is probably going to be dominated by men. And then you'd have to dig deeper, right, to see like what types of jobs do those guys have, and what do they do. And so I think for me, just without doing a ton of research and just looking at the broader economy and doing my own hypothesis, I would have to say the reason why I said that for the most part prices would probably stay the same or continue to incrementally go down for a lot of games is because of the fact that people have a hierarchy of needs just in general, right? So if you're losing your job, if your job isn't paying you as much, if your rent is going up, if your mortgage is going up, if gas is more expensive, if food is more expensive, unless you literally live in your mom's basement, then yeah, these things are going to impact where and how you spend your money. And if I get a comment like, well, Y2K, that doesn't bother me, well, then that just tells me either one, you're independently wealthy and money's not an option for you, or two, you live in your mom's basement and you don't have real bills or responsibilities. One of those two things. Hopefully it's the former and not the latter. But that's not the majority of people. The majority of people have bills, they have responsibilities, they have things that they need to do. And so they can't dedicate all their earnings to video games. And so what I think is happening more than anything else from all the videos that I'm watching and the little articles that I'm reading with regards to the video game market, not just for retro games, but for modern games as well, is that a lot of the core audience for gaming, they have what they want. They have the games that they want. I hear a lot of people in comment sections. I see it in my comment sections. I see it in comment sections on a lot of videos. I see videos actually being made about it where people are saying, I'm good. Like, I have what I want. I have the games that I want. I have the collection that I want. And yeah, there might be, collectors out there that are looking for specific pieces to build out and round out their overall collection. But for the most part, sorry about that, people have what they want. And so I think we're reaching a point of saturation, right? I think we're reaching a point of saturation and satiation where collectors and gamers are satiated. They're satisfied. They're full with what they have. They don't need to buy much more. And I think if we still continue to see a circulation of games, especially if it's like retro games, you're seeing the same games get so bought and sold multiple times over in a year. And usually it's exchanging the hands of resellers. So one reseller finds it at a yard sale for $10. He sells it to another reseller for $30. That reseller takes it to a convention and sells it for $50. That person that buys it at that convention takes it to their store in whatever city they live in. Maybe someone buys the game, plays the game for 20 days, then decides, oh, you know what, I don't want this game anymore, and it's worth this much, so I'm going to sell it again. So they sell it on eBay, or they sell it to a reseller again, and it circulates. It's just a big circle. But to me, I think a lot of people are satisfied, and I don't think a lot of people can justify dedicating certain amounts of their overall financial budget to video games the way that they could before. Again, if you're independently wealthy, if you have no real responsibilities and you can afford to do that, then by all means do that. Enjoy it for me, because I can't enjoy it like that anymore. Have a blast, build your collection, and I'll live cathartically through you, and I'll watch your videos and live the joy and live the experience through you. But I think like I said, if you're someone, you've got family, you've got experience, you got things that you want to do, businesses that you want to build, experiences that you want to have with your family. I've got 2 kids. I've spoiled my daughters. My daughter's thing now is, Dad, can we go to Hawaii? When you got kids like asking you for stuff that costs tens of thousands of dollars, you've kind of set that precedent. There's just all kinds of things, right? And that's a luxury too. No one says you have to go, on a vacation. You could be humble and go to your local pool or go to your local beach, right? And I think you're going to see a lot more of that going into 2026, where people are a lot more conscious about how they're spending their money. And so I think overall, do I think the video game market has crashed or crashing? No, but I think there's an incremental slowdown. I think prices are incrementally dropping. And I think that as people start to age out of the hobby and look for more experiences than just stuff to buy and put on a shelf, I think that you will see that. I love stuff on a shelf. I spent 5 years putting stuff on a shelf, but if I'm forced to make a decision between the stuff on the shelf and business opportunities, time with family, touching grass, I'm gonna have to choose the latter, not just for myself, but for my family. And I think you guys started to see that this summer when we took our trip to Hawaii. I remember sitting in Maui and just thinking, man, I want to have more of these experiences with my kids. I want to shake life up. I want to do something different in 2026. And a big part of doing something different was me selling my collection, and that's okay. So But if you still have your collection, like I said, man, I'm happy for you. Keep making videos and showing us your collection, because then I can relive the joy vicariously. Did I say cathartically? Yeah, vicarious, I think was the word I was looking for. Vicariously through you. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think there was an incremental slowdown? Do you think it's blowing up? Do you think the industry is crashing? What do you think the outlook for 2026 is going to be? I'm interested to know your thoughts. I'll catch you in the next one. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.